Welcome to this lecture on Latin America-India relations. I'm going to describe for you first what do we mean by Latin America and whether we should use the term Latin America or Latin America and Caribbean. So this is the rough map of South America. You have the Caribbean islands and you have Central America. So when we talk about Latin America, we mean South America plus Central America. And Latin America and Caribbean is a bigger connotation which includes Latin America, which is South America, Central America and the Caribbean islands. With this background, I am going to just basic knowledge. I'm just going to state certain facts about Latin America and Caribbean. So it includes in all 33 states from South America, Central America and Caribbean islands, and they have a very common colonizing past. Most of Central America and South America were colonized by the Hispanic colonizers. So all the countries was colonized by Spain except Brazil, which was colonized by Portugal, and this was done through the Treaty of Tordesillas, which divided this new Americas into areas of influence, Brazil by Portuguese colonizers and the rest by Spanish colonizers. And then we had the Caribbean islands which were colonized by Dutch like Suriname, then you had the British colonizers, French colonizers. The interesting history is when Columbus had embarked upon his voyage of discovery in 1492, he discovered these islands and he was almost certain he had reached India or the East Indies. And when he realized his mistake, he started calling them the West Indies. So this is how West Indies has got its name. Once these voyages of Columbus culminated in the discovery of a new region, the monarchs, they started looking at it as a region which was never explored, and this was a new find for them and a region which was rich in natural resources. So we had the onset of colonization. We'll jump a few years and come to the process of decolonization, which starts with the wars of independence between 1810 and 1825. So this 15-year period, most of the countries of South America and Central America got their independence. And you know, it was like a chain of events. It was like a domino effect. So one country would get independent, then the leaders like Simon Bolivar would move to the other country to help them gain independence. So it was like a chain reaction. The other fact about Latin America is that it is a highly urbanized region. It had a lot of land resources. It is 5 times the size of India but has half the population of India. So with this background, what happened was that these countries embarked upon in import substitution industrialization, and this import substitution industrialization process then led to a pattern of movement. This pattern of movement was from the rural areas to the urban areas, and this was called the process of urbanization or migration of rural-urban migration. Therefore, as a result, we have had a highly urbanized Latin American process of development. The other fact about Latin America is that it's a highly unequal society. And going by the figures of World Economic Forum of 2017, 10% of people in Latin America have amassed 71% of the region's wealth. Highly unequal society. And this is seen because of the skewed land distribution pattern. So it's a culture where you have large landed oligarchs who own these estancia or latifundias. These are huge landed estates, totally self-sustained with their own schooling, with their own housing, even to the extent of having their own armies. And then you have the other extreme of landless workers and peasants, who are just contractual laborers on these landed estates. So this is how a lopsided development has happened in Latin America. The other culture is that of Caudillismo, and Caudillismo is a culture where you have a father figure, a strong person who's strong because of either his family background or his education or because of his might or military skills. So this caudillo, the man on horseback, he becomes the leader and he mobilizes people, and there is a client-patron relationship between the caudillo and the people he commands. These caudillos even would lend army men in times of war. So this was the kind of clientele that they commanded. Another interesting factor is that female participation in Latin American politics has been very high. The women got the right to vote in 1940s, and they have more of political leaders or leaders at the helm compared to the United States. And here I would like to tell you that Latin America has been a global leader in terms of female leadership. It started with Evita Peron in 1974. Then you had Michelle Bachelet in 2006. She was the president of Chile. You had Cristina Kirchner coming to power in 2003 in Argentina. You had Laura Chinchilla of Costa Rica, and Kirchner also went on to have another term. Then you had Brazil led by Dilma Rousseff. So just giving you these names to have an idea that not only female have participated in the process of elections, but they've also occupied leadership position. And then one common fact about the Latin American economies is that all of them during the 1980s went through a process of economic collapse, high inflation, indebtedness, which led to this decade being called the lost decade. And that is the defining moment of present day history of Latin America. If we look at Latin America, now it's very interesting. I'm talking about India-Latin America relations. And it's very interesting because you may ask, why are we calling a conglomerate of 33 countries as one unit? So these are the reasons I have identified which causes Latin American and Caribbean to be called a distinct and coherent region. So, interestingly, we say that Latin America is a unified region, and here I quote Bulmer and Thomas, who in 2003 in their work, they say that it is a unified region because of a common language, which is the Romance family of language, the common Iberian colonial past, common religion and similar traditions, as well as comparable social hierarchy, and experienced similar political and economic upheavals, which has led to these areas being called as one entity, which is Latin America and Caribbean identity. So if you look at the fact stated by Bulmer and Thomas, there are certain unifying factors. One of them is dependency. So this is a concept of underdevelopment which was given by Raul Prebisch in the context of Latin America, which says that these are primary product exporting peripheral countries which cater to the demands of the core or the developed countries, and this causes underdevelopment. Now the same term dependency, according to Andre Gunder Frank, has a slightly different connotation. He calls them metropole and satellite. So metropole corresponds to the core of Prebisch and satellites corresponds to the periphery. The other unifying factor, as I told you, that there are near monolithic adherents to Roman Catholic religion, but now there are other variants like the indigenous religion, the African religion. You have emergence of Pentecostalism in most parts of Latin America. And another thing is that there is a categorization of developing countries, and according to the WESP categorization of 2014, all Latin American countries except Haiti fall in the least developed, in the developing category. So Haiti is the only least developed country in the entire region. Another unifying factor, if you say, is that most of these countries have experienced military dictatorship or authoritarian regimes at some point in time or the other. And this process starts with 1960s And by 1980s, when with the onset of last decade, the military moved back to the barracks and there is a process of re-democratization. So if we now try and look at similarities with India, I mean, what are the common factors? Why should they collaborate? Why should we study India, Latin America together? So the following are the similarities with India. Interestingly, India and most countries of Latin America and Caribbean are part of the developing world, and they are grappling with the similar problems, that of poverty and underdevelopment. So poverty and underdevelopment are the defining characteristics of both these regions. The developing status, the political infancy, and if I say political infancy, I am not looking at the period of democratization after the wars of independence to the last decade, but I am referring to the third wave of democratization and which corresponded with the process of re-democratization in Latin America. So, and because then, it's only towards the end of the 1980s or 90s that Latin America starts becoming re-democratized, and that's why we call it political infancy. So political infancy, instability, the enriched culture and sizable middle class are some of the factors that make both the important actors in international politics. To add to this, there is another factor, and that is the sizable presence of the indigenous population. Their experiences, if you look at in terms of political, economic or social experiences, the inward-looking development strategies, which was dubbed as ISI model in Latin America, and we had similar protectionist policies which was developed in the first, second, third and fourth 5-year plans. For example, India was looking at the Green Revolution. Likewise, Latin American countries were relying heavily on import substitution, industrialization. So all these were inward-looking development strategies. We wanted to create protectionist barriers so that our infant industries or nascent industries could be protected. And this was the reason why we became similar. Also, similarity in terms of exporters of agricultural and mineral-based commodities, which make these countries vulnerable to price fluctuations worldwide, have led to coming together of these two regions, and it has also resulted in these two regions being very cautious of choosing their ties and allies, having suffered that kind of an issue. The other factor that we need to study is what attraction does India have for Latin America, and vice versa, how is Latin America attractive to Indian policy or foreign policy making. So let us now look at the India's pull factor, and interestingly, you have to look at the most important criteria for any collaboration or for any country to control its inflation or to correct its economy. It is how much are you spending on energy. And because of India's growing demand for energy, Latin American countries which were energy rich, they started looking at this region which was energy deficient and was in requirement for lot of renewable sources of energy, and that was the advantage of the Latin American countries. So the other was the need for extractive resources. So there, Latin America had a lot of resources, like initially it had coffee, it had sugar, rubber, then Chile's nitrate industry. So these were some of the things which became very attractive for India, and that was pulling Latin America towards India. The other factor is that 3 of the G20 economies, that is Brazil, Mexico and Argentina, are in Latin America, and this gives the Indian businessman Philip to tap the expansive markets of Latin America. Interestingly, India's trade with Latin American countries has been very important in sectors such as information technology and manufacturing. Moreover, the region has emerged as an important market for the Indian pharmaceutical and automobile industries. The nations started looking towards alternative markets, and because they wanted to diversify from their traditional reliance on US or the European countries, and they started looking for new avenues, new areas for investment, and this is when India started becoming more attractive to them, and they had also by this time realized that India was contributing around 10% to the world economic growth. So this was India's pull. And the other realization was that having access in India would give them an outpost to access Asia. So the Indo-Pacific region or China or Southeast Asia would become more accessible if they had a foothold in India. This brings us to the other side of the story. So what is the attraction for Latin America? Why does Latin America pull India? So if you look at that, there are certain lessons to be learned. Now Latin America and the Caribbean, since the last decade of the 1980s, and they had experienced another lost half decade during 1997 and 2002, the way in which they emerged from these crises through sound economic management practices is a lesson which India needs to learn. Moreover, the Latin American Caribbean countries weathered the international crisis of 2008 with remarkable resilience and emerged from it sooner and more robustly than many of the developed economies of the world. Now, soft power of India in the form of its cultural and civilizational practices like yoga, art of living, Kathak dance, music, all these become saleable items. These become points of interaction. And then India's enormous stride that has been made in exports, especially in the IT and IT enabled services, has made India very attractive. So if you should look at the quantum of collaborations, especially in terms of IT enabled services. So TCS or Infosys or Tech Mahindra are the companies which have sizable presence in Latin America. But this is despite the attractiveness, despite the pull and the push factors, there are certain challenges. I mean, despite all these advantages, why did Latin America or India not collaborate to the extent which would have become productive or which would have become sizable? So there are certain challenges which you have to look at. So these challenges are in terms of language, because the Latin American countries don't speak English. So also the Indians are more comfortable in speaking English. Therefore, the language is a barrier. However, this language barrier is being done away with the help of interpreters, and Spanish has become the most studied language in India. So that language a barrier is being done away with. The other barrier are the geographical distance. So long shipping routes, there is still no direct air connectivity. Then you have similar problems like delays in processes, corruption, red tapeism. The other challenge is that both Brazil and Mexico are the only two countries with which India is obsessed. So we need to move beyond Brazil and Mexico. And the other thing, the problem is about visits of heads of state. So in the recent time, what we have seen is a trend that most of the meetings of the heads of the state happens on the sides of the world event. So dedicated efforts or dedicated visits are not being made. Now if you look at the evolution of the connections started with the following factors. Now for the colonizers, and especially the Spaniards, the Portuguese or the Britishers, the El Dorado and the El Oriente vision was very, very important for onset of the connection. Traditionally, India's engagement with Latin American countries was guided by the non-aligned movement. The other aspect of connectiveness was the identity of Global South and the South-South cooperation, which was a term prescribed by Lula, President of Brazil. A search for a third world identity is the other rallying point or the commonality, and this is called tercermundismo or the third world identity. Interestingly then, the role of Indira Gandhi and her voyage of discovery to 10 countries in 1968 had a major role, at least in terms of discovery of the prospects of Latin America. Then we have seen that there are mutuality of interests and perception, which I have already highlighted, like poverty, underdevelopment. Then the rallying point of connection starts with the process of globalization in the 1990s, and that breaks barriers and they become closer to each other thanks to the IT revolution. We've had several visits by heads of state, vice presidents and ministers in this regard. Now, in the evolution of connection, if you look at the last decade of the 1980s and in India, we had a simultaneous economic liberalization of the 1990s. So then this was the point where the foreign policies of the two regions evolved in being more upbeat towards each other because of analogous history, culture and economy. Then a dedicated program called Focus Latin America was launched in 1996 to improve multilateral and bilateral ties, and this became the rallying point of Latin America India Connect. The post 1980s, these countries started exploring world platform in order to raise their international profile. Rajiv Gandhi in 1984, he highlighted the need for strengthening political and economic relations with Latin America and Caribbean, and he wanted to continue the commitment of the principles and objectives of NAM. Interestingly, it was Lok Sabha MP Daulat Singh Ji P. Jadeja, father of Ajay Jadeja, the cricketer, in 1983, who had a very sizable role in bringing Latin America to the fore, and he said he had in his speech opined that India could no longer afford to ignore Latin America and Caribbean. And then we've seen 2 visits by PM Modi on the sidelines of 6th BRICS summit in Brazil and for the 13th G20 summit in Argentina, which took the relationship further. Since the beginning of the 1980s, MEA in India started devoting considerable attention to describe India's expanding relations with Latin America and Caribbean, indicating that Latin America had assumed a new importance. Then also they started expressing similar views on platforms like NAM, G20+, O5, IBSA, G4, BRICS and BASIC. And it was the global financial crisis of 2008 that triggered a fundamental change in the outlook of Latin America towards India. And here I have just described the Focus Latin America and the outreach program. So looking at the connections, we have to see that there has been political connections by way of colonial history, by way of commitment towards NAM, South-South cooperation. There has been Focus Latin America 1996 strategy, which was unveiled by the Indian government. China's growing presence has also been, defining the Latin America and India relations, and the desire for Latin America to do away with their dependence on US and Europe is another political factor. And if you look at India, the opening of embassies has been prolific. India today hosts 20 Latin American and Caribbean embassies and maintains 14 in that region. Many of the embassies have accreditation, that is, they'll also look after the affairs of the other countries. Now, looking at the cultural collaboration, you have this diaspora connection, which is immense. And then now, because of affluence, these Indian diaspora in Caribbean islands, they want to come back and find their roots in India. So that has given an impetus to cultural relations. Latin America and India are known for heroic leaders. So Che Guevara, Gandhi, these are some of the names which everybody chants in the 2 respective regions. You have renowned authors like Tagore, Naipaul, widely read. They intersect the lives of Indians in some way or the other. Then you have this concept of food diplomacy, where Mexican food is becoming very, very popular in India. So you have salsa, you have Tex-Mex, and also in terms of art and culture, cinema has been a major contributor, and you have an actor from Bihar called Prabhakar Sharan, who's become the hero in Costa Rican film. And then you have actors from Latin America coming and acting in Indian movies. You have influences, a confluence of music between Indian and Caribbean music especially, and there are 2 styles which are very famous, Calypso and Chutney music. Then the dance styles, Kathak and Samba, get fused. You have similar family values. Religion, again, you have indigenous variants, which is also there in India, in tribal variants. Then art of living, yoga, Brahma Kumaris, ISKCON has found great admiration in Latin American continent. And then you have the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, which tries to give more significance to the diaspora activities. If you look at the economic cooperation, the trade and commerce, then crude oil is the highest area of import from Latin America, then second highest is copper, then you have vegetable oil, soy and sunflower oil which come. From India we mostly export automobile and pharmacy, then Tata, Marco Polo buses, the Kidzania entertainment centers that you have in Mumbai and Noida, the Cinepolis group of entertainment of film halls are some of the collaborations with Mexico. Food security is another aspect in which India has a lot to learn from, especially Brazil, the agribusinesses. Energy security, reliance on non-renewable has to be brought down, and therefore, alternative or renewable sources of energy, which is known as gasohol, is a major trade component from Brazil. Then you have human resources. As I told you, there are IT personnel from India which go and work there and give the IT backup. Then there are also economic collaborations in terms of bilateralism, so country to country collaboration. So you have preferential trade agreements with Chile and with Peru in the pipeline. You have multilateralism also, like India, Mercosur, PTA, and then you have CARICOM and India relations. So these are the kind of economic collaborations that we have been seeing. I will skip the specific country relations because this may take time, and because of paucity of time I would just like to skip these and come basically to the Caribbean region. Just give you a small idea of the Caribbean cooperation. So in Caribbean, the Indian diaspora started going there as indentured laborers, which was called the Girmitias. So there is a sizable Indian diaspora in Trinidad and Tobago, in Guyana, in Suriname. They speak Bhojpuri, they follow the Indian tradition. So that is the content and collaboration. With this, I like to sum up. So let me look at, it's an immense region. Half an hour is not enough to do justice. However, I would like to summarize it by saying that bilateral diplomatic ties were weak in the 20th century because of a combination of distance, lack of economic and cultural interaction, and the absence of diaspora outside of the Caribbean nation. The Focus Latin America program has had multiple extensions, and this has gone a long way in establishing close collaboration between the two regions. The most recent came in 11th April 2014, and it was extended till March 2019. Now India has signed, as I told you, preferential trade agreements, free trade agreements. They also have collaborated along the lines of fundamental reforms of the UN Security Council, so that the P5 gets expanded, elimination of the specific, special veto rights to the P5, they want this to be eliminated. There have been concerns that the G4 proposal would exclude them from the decision-making process and reduce their chances for representation in other international fora. So this is one common concern. Now in this respect, what I want to emphasize here is that India and Latin America and the Caribbean, they need to reposition themselves in the world economy, and they have to address the growing relevance of South-South linkages in trade, foreign direct investment and finance. By enhancing cooperation in innovation and human capital, they must diversify trade, add greater value, and apply new knowledge to exports. And the ECLAC is closely monitoring developments and economic relations between Latin America and Caribbean, and this is a welcome challenge, because earlier they would only devote their energy and their space to European or United States. Now disenchanted with the protectionist US and Europe and determined to reduce its overdependence on China, Latin Americans see India as a large and growing market as well as a benign economic partner for win-win in the long term, is the view of our Ambassador R. Viswanathan, who is a votary of Latin America-India collaboration. And with this, I would like to conclude saying that despite the language barrier, despite the distances, there are ways forward, ways ahead. We can overcome challenges, and in terms of India's foreign policy making, Latin America can contribute sizably. Thank you very much.